Welcome everyone to the fifth Podim Day satellite event of 2021. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so happy to have you all here. I'm sure you are all excited to hear our guest talk about the fintech, digital transformation, and share some concrete examples of how digitalization of banking and financial services. But before we move on to the discussion, we got some updates on the Podim conference main event that is just a month away. We got some fresh stats about the startups that are attending Podim. So there are more than 160 of startups nicely curated in a digital catalog, so you can meet them and talk with them. They are coming from 19 countries and from a variety of industries, mostly from the business and productivity industry, followed by lifestyle and entertainment, and mobility and transportation. In next days, we will reveal the conference agenda with more than 100 speakers that are waiting for you in a 3-day long program. All in all, it's looking to be a nice and full of content event again. If you want to attend the conference, there are tickets already available to you, and we have also some nice deals going on in our web shop. So make sure you grab them. And of course, Podim wouldn't be possible without our great partners and sponsors. One of them is Nova KBM, and we have here the COO of Nova KBM, Aytaç Aydin, with us. Hello, Aytaç, and welcome to our virtual Podim Day satellite event. I cannot hear you here in studio, but I'm going to proceed with the conversation. I presume you can hear me. So thank you for supporting the Podim again this year. This is an important event, and you are an important partner and also in the ecosystem. So what is the most important value you expect to get out of this year's cooperation on the biggest startup and tech event in Europe?
I hope everybody can hear. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We see Podim mostly as an opportunity for Nova KBM to have valuable insight in fintechs, startup community, and to get fresh ideas which could be applicable to our business, be it B2C, be it B2B. So it's always good to have that kind of fresh minds, young minds coming up with new ideas because now everybody knows many industries went through a huge transformations, disruptions, let's say, and finance is next. Everybody knows this. It's now secret. It's taking longer than the others because it's highly regulated, but it's gonna happen. Maybe in the 3 years, 5 years term, it will happen, and we don't want to be left out. So this is the biggest value we got out of Podim. Meet fresh minds, different ideas, different views, and let people see. Let people help us see differently how we can approach our clients and our partners.
Great. So there will be more and more great startups for you there in the deal room and talk with them, and also in the conference program. So last period was super active for Nova KBM. So you have merger with Abanka. Mobile wallet, all things going on. So what was the biggest challenge for Nova KBM as organization, and what was the biggest challenge for you personally?
A good question. I joined 2.5 years ago, almost, Nova KBM, fresh out of coming from Turkey. I served in many different banks, but coming to a different country with a lot of challenges, I think it was my personal challenge, but I'm quite adaptive. I will explain what it means. When I jumped in, it was a core banking replacement project. We were at the beginning of replacing the core platform, which is the hardest thing for a bank, especially for an established bank. So we did that in the first year, and the team has done a fantastic job. I will come to that in a couple of minutes. The team has done a fantastic job. We replaced the core platform within a year, a little bit over than a year, but this is a miracle because in any bank, it cannot take less than 2 years. And we did it in 14 months. Right after that, our shareholders, Apollo Global Management Fund, American-based PE fund. They acquired our bank, as you said. That was the biggest challenge in 2020. The core banking replacement was from 2019, and 2020 is our bank merger. Just to put into perspectives, Nova KBM had 13% market share, and our bank around 12, 11. So it was kind of almost equal sizes, and when we combined those, we became, in many dimensions, the biggest bank in Slovenia. So we created a very strong bank, and we did this also in the closing happened in February, so we did the migration. It's 10 months. So we did migration of two banks or merger of two banks in 10 months. Again, the team has a huge part in this, and I'm talking about every sides of the bank, be it IT, be it ops, be it retail, be it communications, be it HR. So these were really challenging stuff, but since we have a good team, experienced people with a good attitude, we overcame this.
So not to mention that it was like a super strange and challenging year also from the pandemic perspective, right? To put on top the challenging times you have and challenges you have on the table.
Actually, I told many people, and this always comes up, and unfortunately, this happened, COVID, but it helped us to achieve our targets because of two things. One is it increased efficiency. I read an article today, I think it was one of the respected US firm or company who's doing this kind of researches. They found out that it increased 5 to 10% of efficiency of people because of remote work, because you don't lose time. So first of efficiency, and second of all, it helped us focus only on the critical project, which is the migration or merger of two banks. Nothing else came out. There's an echo. I think, Mila, you need to mute. Thanks. So those two areas came with COVID, and it helped us a lot. I'll be frank, I didn't see COVID as a challenge. We immediately adapted to remote work. Except branches, 90%, 95% of our staff went remote working properly in 3-4 days.
Fantastic. Congrats. This is a huge achievement. So maybe to have a more relaxed question, so also related to your bank, of course. So, you know, Primož Roglič was the bank ambassador of the merger campaign, and has recently won a big race. So what is your personal bet? Will he win Tour de France this year?
As a whole bank, we are supporting him, and we really see common points between us as a culture and him, and we believe in him as we believe in our business. And I think I met him as well, so he's a very strong character and a strong sportsman. I don't see why not, because of course there are some other factors like luck, something can happen, but if he's not unlucky, let me put it that way, I think he has a huge chance of winning. As we as Nova KBM relate ourselves with him. He's a champion on track, we are in finance, so that's why we chose him.
Great comparison. So the last question, so what would you describe as a win for Nova KBM that could be equivalent of the Primož win on Tour de France this year?
Again, if I look at last year, it should be the merger of Abanka and Nova KBM. And I'm not saying we bought them, or it was like an equal merger of equals, I would see it that way. And that's how we picked the teams. So that was the biggest achievement we did in the last year. We migrated close to 500,000 active clients over one weekend. Of course, we prepared for that. We did lots of simulations, but over one weekend, which is the year end, over 4 days, we migrated everybody almost without a glitch. So that was the biggest achievement we can compare to winning Tour de France.
So you already won Tour de France, so what is there left on on the table. I'm sure we'll talk about these later in the discussion, but don't forget my question. So if you already won everything, so what would be your next win? So, but thank you again, once again, sincerely for your support, and really looking forward for the discussion later. We have a short video ahead of us, and then jumping to the discussion of digital transformation, fintechs, and banking.
My first day at Podim, and my first impression is wow.
For me, one of the best conferences in Europe.
It's one of the best organized conferences I've ever experienced.
It's incredible how well it's organized and how professional this conference is.
This was the best networking day since last Podim.
1,000 people is really the perfect number.
There's connections that are made nowhere else.
I don't think that connecting anywhere else is at the same level as here.
Deal room format is really good.
It's a very useful event for everyone who wants to invest.
So some of the startups are really amazing, and I think they have a great potential.
A lot of really good companies thinking big.
We have found some partners. The goal has been reached.
Podim can be a gateway to much larger opportunities.
And that's why we come back every year.
So once again, welcome everyone and welcome to the discussion, to the 5th Podim Satellite event. We call it Fintech Challenges and Opportunities. I get to see this video for 100 times and I'm still, getting my goosebumps since I'm so excited for the main event. But I'm also excited to have such a great guest today here for this conversation, starting with Sevelina Vasiljeva, the General Manager of Visa for Bulgaria, Greece and Cyprus. Welcome, Sevelina.
Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I mean, I would have preferred to be there in person, but that's the new normal. So nice to meet you virtually.
The invitation is open, so when the situation will allow, we'll be happy to host you here next year, maybe in Podim, in our beautiful Maribor. So nice to have you here. We have Daniel Tomo, the founding partner of 11 Ventures and the FinTech lead. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Urban. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me for this webinar. It's really a privilege.
Great. Your colleagues have been in Maribor already, so Einstein, maybe you have been in Maribor or in Podim conference?
No, I mean, when we were visiting, actually, we had split geographically the region, So actually, I was not the one that was coming to Podim, but as Sevi said, I will use the first opportunity to come to Maribor.
Great. Again, also welcome to the discussion and also later in the Podim. iTouch, we already discussed a little bit sooner, but iTouch Aydin, the member of management board of Nova KBM. iTouch, welcome on the discussion.
Thanks a lot. Hi again, everybody. And I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Great. So it's an interesting discussion ahead of us. We have like two main topics that we will open today. One is collaboration with the startup ecosystem and boosting innovativeness. And the second one is digitalization of banking. So we will kind of switch between these two topics with with our wonderful guests we have here today. So I'll start with Sevelina. So you've been involved in banking actively since 2007. What are the most radical, important, disruptive changes that you have witnessed in this banking career of yours?
So in fact, after 10 years that I first spent when I started my career in FMCG, in Coca-Cola and with private equity investments in the area, in 2007, I jumped into banking. And this was just at the verge of the global financial crisis. So that was the first absolute challenge and disruption that I think the global financial industry experienced. Personal challenge, because that was my first touch with the banking industry. So I entered as an executive director, managing a lot of people, but we also had to weather the storm. So this was about the time when we started speaking about, as I said in the beginning, efficiency, a lot of changes, reorganizations, and that's how it all started. So a little bit later on, we started speaking about the omnichannel. Nowadays, this is like the norm. The common platform is managing the interactions with the customers at branch and call centers on the web. That was the time about 2007, 2008, when actually we started promoting a lot the remote banking channels, obviously for efficiency reasons as well. It was, a period where actually the internet banking took off with a lot of new introductions in terms of services, electronic services to the bank customers. All of that was possible because of the technology advancement, of course, and because of the fact that we started speaking about customer-centric business models rather than, product factories and selling just banking products standalone. It was around that time again that we saw the first contactless cards. In my banking career, we introduced the first digital cards, the first Apple and Garmin Pays over the last 2 years. I think also that looking retrospectively, the open banking regulation which came in place lately was a major milestone, and also with all the accompanying regulations, the PSD2, the GDPRs and everything. So that changed the whole landscape of the industry. So the more I think about it, the most innovative and technological developments actually took place in the areas of payments, data applications, customer interactions and experience. And that's normal because the connectivity was improving, the data, management was more and more automated, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the ubiquitous penetration of mobile smart devices, digitization, all that gave completely new ground to the financial services, and banking is not an exception. Yes, I said that it's happening slowly or slower, but it's happening. And actually COVID was a major, I would say again, milestone into all of this because it really pushed us into this direction.
Great for this question, for this answer. So majority of these milestones you mentioned happened condensed in last few years. So open banking, PSD2, GDPR, and everything, right? And on top of it, COVID, right? So would you describe the pace of change in banking as a revolution or as an evolution? What would you say?
It is an evolution. It's not a revolution. It's an evolution that is getting faster and faster by the day. And it cannot be a revolution for a couple of reasons, in my view. So that's my personal view. The digital transformation it has invoked core banking systems modernization, mobile technology integration, digitization and automation of many back office processes. This takes time. It takes also an organizational and mentality shift. And that was a major change for the traditional banking world, which in our part of the world was predominantly brick and mortar, if you remember. So nothing can happen at once. And since financial services and banking in particular, I mean, it's all about trust. So you need to be very careful how you execute these changes, how you approach the customer journey in the broader sense, communication, services, and that takes a lot of effort. It entails a lot of risks. Of course, they should be managed. So quality prevails over quantity. So that's why it's an evolution. It really takes time and thought and organizational changes as well.
Thanks. I'll challenge on your thesis here, Daniel. Daniel, you are in the front row of fintech, disruptive startups. They are knocking on your doors with revolutionary technologies, business models. Would you agree that this change is a evolution, not a revolution? What is your take on this?
Now, from my perspective, it's happening very slow. All this evolution and change in any aspect of the financial services. which is actually a great opportunity for founders, because the slower an industry is in kind of reinventing itself, or like answering the expectations, meeting the expectations of its consumers, then the bigger the opportunities you have for entrepreneurs. So from this perspective, I think that there is a change. We could all of us could see the change. It's happening fast in certain parts of the world. It's slower in other parts. From my perspective, it's very slow, which is great for startups.
Great. You are the founding partner at the 11. Your speciality, our fintech, is fintech. So why did you choose this area? What attracts you so much in this industry?
I mean, it's just this opportunity that I just described. It's one of the, until recently was relatively less digitalized industry. Of course, it's being digitalized. So the kind of the fundamental opportunities for disruption are decreasing. Of course, there'll be new that will appear. But actually, this is a sphere that was regulated. That there is a change in consumer behavior. There is a change in technology. Something that was not possible years ago. Now it's possible. There are new technologies that actually can converge and support this change. So you have this mix that is at the available to entrepreneurs. And you could actually do a lot of interesting things, and you could create a lot of value for consumers, something that was not possible years ago, like new ways of consuming financial services, much more efficient, much more user friendly. Also, all this data that now could be consumed and not be like in silos in different banks or other institutions. You could actually combine it because of PSD2, and you could provide better services in terms of whether it's credit or scoring or anything else. So from that perspective, this is very exciting, because this would actually open totally different opportunities for other industries, whether it's for e-commerce or for something else. It's very interesting time for entrepreneurs now.
So I imagine you see a lot of startups per year from this area. You've been also involved in the VC industry for quite some time. What was the last, idea or product or services that really fascinated you, that threw you out of the chair and you said, "Wow, this is really amazing thing"? What was that? Can you imagine? Can you remember?
With time, you become a little bit more picky. When you see so many entrepreneurs, so many ideas. But something that comes to mind in this particular field is, for example, one of our portfolio companies. We invested 2 years ago. But I got reminded of what they have achieved because yesterday they announced one of the largest Series A rounds in Europe. They just launched $20 million, and it's something that in a way it's a very mundane problem, but it's something that is troubling small companies and bigger companies. The way you actually manage your expenses and how you report your expenses, and how these things actually are being financed by employees and then reported to management and reimbursed like a month later, and accounted a month even later. And if you think about this, it's enormous part of of any organization, and all of us have been through this very unpleasant experience. But even with all the technologies and all the innovation, there was no good solutions for all that. So actually they managed to crack this and make and invented technology and a product that actually could lead to transformative behavior in a very seamless way. So this is something that you rarely see, and this is something that apologies, this is my dot. But this is something that was really, really great, and we very much were excited, and we invested at the time.
Great. So again, we are at more evolutionary changes, not the revolutionary. That it's maybe looks from the outside that the industry is being like disrupted and changed radically. So Artach, you already described some of the changes that affected the banking, the changes that you've been through. What is your perspective now is this the rhythm and the pace of changes, is this getting faster and faster, or is this big ship really slowly turning and adapting to new circumstances, new technologies, new business models?
I see these kind of things as like an S-curve. It's always it happens like that, and now I think we are getting to next plateau. It slowed down in the, I would say, last 2-3 years. If you look around, whatever you see, I agree with Daniel. It's not slow. It's pretty much some bells and whistles. I'm talking about financial industry. I'm not talking about other industries, but this applies to many other industries. But it was, I think, beginning of 2000s. It was like the beginning of S-curve and all these payment systems, this digital channels. It was like a huge change. It's not revolutionary. I will come to that, because in banking, it cannot be revolutionary because of the parts that was mentioned, but also it's regulated. So when it's regulated that heavy, you will never have a revolution unless you have a civil war, which is, nobody wants that, and it will make the financial system collapse. I don't think it's going to happen. So when you look at it, a very highly regulated industry, you cannot almost never have a revolution. And also the third one, I didn't mention the third one, the banking system is quite adaptive, and we are quite agile, and we have good talent. We, especially between 2000 and 2015, I would say, the best guys were usually going to, out of college, were going to banks. Now it changed in the last 7-8 years. But when you have that kind of brains, we always caught up with the startups, new ideas. So we improved ourselves very fast. So that's why there was no disruption. These are the three main reasons that we didn't have disruptions in the last 20 years. This doesn't mean that we will not have it, but it's quite hard to have a disruption.
Great, and you mentioned that this also pandemic accelerated this digitalization also, and also Sevdelina talked about it. Did you adjust your goals according to this faster pace of digitalization? This is questions both for you and Sevdelina.
Ladies first.
So to repeat the question, so this faster pace that happened, that was unexpected till beginning of 2020, did this make you adjust your goals? So you will receive it, you will achieve it sooner and than you planned?
Actually, now I have to talk about payments, because right now I'm in the payments industry, not any more a banker. So 1.5 years I joined Visa as a general manager for Greece, Bulgaria, and Cyprus. So the strategy that the company that I represent has put in place is more valid than ever, because actually it originated as a company that is facilitating payments for everyone, everywhere, at any time. So the strategy hasn't changed. The pace has accelerated a lot, especially over the last year. And we needed to adjust to the extent that Visa is the biggest global network payments platform. So we're processing billions and billions of transactions, 200 countries, 70 million merchants across the world. And as the overall commercial landscape is changing, with digitization, with e-commerce, with new flows that were predominantly cash before, like government disbursements, wages, payroll, transfers of money. Now this is all coming into the digital rails, instant payments, almost in real time. So we have worked and we will continue to work to enable our platform to be able actually to facilitate the movement of money, not only the purchases and payments, but the movement of money in a matter of seconds. So that is something that has changed a lot. Also, now as the global landscape, as I said, is changing, we are now partnering obviously with the banks. So all the banks are our traditional clients. We're partnering with the challengers, with the fintech companies, with the governments, with NGOs, and you name it. So we've seen the appearance of huge e-com marketplaces. We now see the cryptocurrencies coming into place, the digital currencies. So all of that needs to be at the reach of the people, of the consumers and the customers who need it. So that's our goal, and we're working very much into this direction, enabling our technological platform and innovation through collaboration with many, many, many other platforms and players. So that has been, I think, a major evolutionary point for Visa over the last 2 years. So, and yes, and now, especially, I was actually talking to my team the other day, crypto, digital currencies, Coinbase. So everything is just coming all at once, the open banking. And I am just very conscious of the fact how you explain all that to consumers, how you make use cases out of it. So that's very important. I'm hearing this from our banking partners all the time. Which are the leading use cases, how we should structure the consumer journey, the customer experience. So how we make all of this actually produce real tangible results and live up to the expectations of the different audiences that we have across the world.
Thanks. Aytaç, so living up the expectation of your customers, accelerating the pace, shortening the cycles of product launches, adapting the goals. A little bit on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, we adapted, of course, our goals depending on the market needs, but we had more challenges on the loan front rather than customer needs shifting because of people were losing jobs. That was the biggest impact we had on financial industry. The loan quality, it was in the beginning expected to go quite negative, but thanks to government support and in the European Union support, that was not the case. But we adjusted significantly our financial targets. On the customer-facing processes, applications, touch points, I think it wasn't like abrupt changes. It was like a gradual change. So Corona didn't bring additional pace. I didn't see that kind of change, especially in the pace. We changed as we planned the touch points, the experience improvements. So in that terms, I don't see a big change coming from the Corona. The other side is important though. Internally, it helped us a lot to become more digital, more remote, and it was like it speeded our adaptation by, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ahead. Because if Corona didn't happen, we would come to this remote working culture in at least 3-4 years time, maybe 5 years time. But thanks to Corona, we came to that point within weeks, literally, let alone years. So that was the biggest change, and we adjusted our policies, also HR guidelines, everything changed. If you're asking about that part, That was the biggest impact on the financial world. Also other industries, but mainly on the financial world, because we went remote immediately and nothing was changed.
Great, thanks. Fantastic answer. So, Daniel, so one of the sources of innovation, also for big corporation or banks or for companies as Visa, are also startups, and you are running or you are partnering in the Visa Innovation Program. So, and also you have a strong corporate innovation program in your VC in 11. So this is not like something common in a VC world. Can you tell me why you have such a strong arm for corporate innovation, and what are your expectations from and results from Visa Innovation Program?
It's not that common in Europe, but it's pretty common in the US. There are probably different names and different formats. But why we do it? We are mainly focused on companies that are in the B2B field. So if you come from areas like ours, which are not that intensive ecosystems. I mean, the ecosystems are growing like crazy, and the pace of growth is much faster than some of the established ecosystems, but still it's not that intensive compared to the mature ecosystem. So you have to, and you would like to support your companies, you have to find ways to bridge the gap between the startups and the corporates, because when you're early stage investor, one of the first things that you have to do is, how to help the companies build the right product. They have to have the first customers, the first pilots, reference projects, etc. And we discovered early on that if you don't do anything, if you try to do something with a bank, it could take like 12 to 16 months for a first client. They don't know you, they don't know how to work with you, and there are so many other issues. So we said, okay, we have to build a mechanism so that we change that. So actually, this type of format that we build, the corporate innovation, is something that works very well for everybody. So from the point of view of the corporate, the corporates they would like to scout for new technologies, for new products, for new ideas, how they could actually enhance their value proposition to the customers, that could actually end up with like more revenues or lower costs or more efficiency or better compliance. So this is the motivation there. For the startups, it's clear they would like to get to their first customers. For us, it's we are not only helping companies that we already invested, but also it helps us to build like a magnet for startups. Because if you have this working well, it attracts more companies coming your way that would like to do this. So it's on one way it works as a magnet, and second, it works as a validation for concepts and everything else. So this is why we started that, and it works so far really well. And we started with this motivation with Visa. Actually, we started this with Sevi more than 3 years ago, and the results are really great. So there are a number of companies that actually benefited from either piloting with Visa or with different banks and validating and boosting their value proposition. Actually, this company Payhawk that is growing really well and landed this pretty huge Series A funding, was part of the first edition of the Visa Innovation Program, and now this year, for example, we kind of pulled all our resources in the region, so we made it as one platform. So we have all the let's say the banks from Bulgaria operating in Bulgaria, and Greece, and Turkey, and Cyprus. So we attract companies from we have now from Croatia, from Poland, from Romania, from the region, of course, here. So it really became this magnet that helps companies boost their business. And finally, just final word is that because for startups, usually they're treated as they're usually part of the procurement for banks. So you have to compete with the Microsofts, with the SAPs and all this, which is very unfair competition. But when you put it in this format, you're part of the product development. You're part of new revenue generation initiatives. And so it's a totally different type of relationship. And so far it works really well.
So it's like a fast lane for the startups into the banking system and to banks, really great. I also know for some startups from Slovenia that applied, so hopefully they will be part of the program. Really great. Thanks again. I'm also glad that some of the questions also from our audience popped up. So at this moment, everyone that is listening and being present in this very interesting event, please post the questions in the Zoom chat so I can pick them up. So the first question is from for Sevdalina and for iTouch, for both of you. The question is if you have seen any real breakthroughs in this area of open banking in recent years. This question is from Martin. Martin, thank you for the question. So open banking, you both mentioned it, and have you seen any really breakthrough in these interesting new services lately? Feel free to start. Sevdalina will follow.
For the lady first. Sevdalina, why don't you?
Thank you, Edith. Actually, to be honest, no, I haven't. And I'm working a lot in the open banking area because we also have startups actually in this in the Visa Innovation Program that we run with 11. So for me, the open banking came in forcefully as per the regulation which was issued, which made, and I was at that time I was part of a bank, so we had to comply with the regulation and create, the APIs so that the two main services, the account aggregation and payment initiation, actually can take place. And mostly the financial institutions, they complied with this regulation. However, on the end consumer sides, so on the usability of open banking, so far, most probably apart from the UK and the Nordics, where we have some very strong companies that are actually leveraging open banking, like Ting and some others, we haven't seen something dramatic as a consumer service and a very kind of straightforward wow proposition, if you wish. So for what I mean, and that's again my personal view. So the open banking, the third-party providers, actually, the companies that are enabling the open banking are more perceived on the infrastructure layer or the mid layer, creating the connectivity, transferring the data, getting the consent, complying with all the needed technical standards and regulations. But for the service to be really widespread, you really need to find the winning use case. I mean, I'll keep coming to the use cases because this is something that we see across all the countries. So the winning use case and the value propositions, because at the end of the day, it's a consumer choice driven thing. And that's what the regulation is aiming at: democratize the financial services and gradually move from open banking actually to open finance. So I think that because there were a lot of technical problems, a lot of hiccups, with the way the APIs work and so on and so forth, we haven't seen yet, a big unicorn into, open banking and user service provider. But I think we will see. The data which is transferred through open banking is very valuable, as that helps. The credit viability assessment of the customer. You can aggregate the data and have really a valuable personal finance manager, for example, or business finance manager, budget optimizers. A lot of value-added services can be built, but I think it's still in the process. Most probably, it's going to take like a couple of I mean, I wouldn't say years, but at least 2 years more. And another problem with the, not a problem, another thing with the aspect of the open banking is that you need to find ways to monetize it. You know, it has to make sense for the banks to offer it. It's not very clear how you do that, because customers, they tend to believe that this should be most probably for free. And if you charge, then you really need to have something to charge for to be interesting and appealing.
Great. I touch something to add here.
Overall, I'm quite. I have very similar thoughts. I didn't see any solid example. None of the companies that we are dealing with, or I'm personally involved, or I'm out of my curiosity that I'm following, there is no single one who found a proper solution to just using the open banking platform and then creating a good value proposition, as Sevdalina said. And there are several reasons. First of all, the spectrum of services or the functions is very limited. Okay, account balance, payment initiation, it's not what people are using the banking for. It's much more than that. So as long as you don't have the bigger spectrum of services and features, this will never fly. Second of all, especially in the Europe and the retail customers, they don't work with many banks, especially on the account side. They have mainly one bank. So this open banking consolidation of accounts doesn't work well for the retail, which is the mess. The other, I mean, maybe micro, even the micro has usually one account with one bank, that kind of stuff. When it comes to SMEs and corporates, it becomes more attractive because they usually, that is coming from the business, the customers. This is mainly coming from the regulator just to push banks, because regulator, I think, with all due respect, they misread the need here. They think banks are being a Chinese wall between customers and these kind of services. So they're trying to break this Chinese wall. It's not the right wall that they need to break, because the customers don't need that kind of service from the bank. Open banking. I'm going to turn the question to you, all of you. How many of you would prefer to have open banking and having one application and having your bank accounts, and you can initiate transactions from that one application in different banks, different accounts? How crucial that is for you? I don't think it's crucial. I have many bank accounts because I'm coming from Turkey, and even I wouldn't use one, because I have one main bank, which I do most of my transactions, and I use credit cards for other banks, and because of the value proposition that card gives me. So PSD2, coming back to the summary, it has to be covering more functions in the banking, and it needs to address the real need of the customer, not like just to push banks to open up the services.
Great. So I'm glad that we are really, down to the point discussion, really concrete, that you're really using and talking about the use cases, about the value proposition. This is really like, startup vocabulary, which is really great, and it fascinates me. So question to you, Daniel, you're so here in this discussion, like the representative of the startups in a way also, and what they are really good at are, is the discovery of needs on the market, the use cases, the value proposition for different customer segments. So what would you say are the biggest opportunities you see in this field, in fintech, digitalization of banking, for startups and SMEs? So where are the most business opportunities, where they should tap in, or in which direction they should go to get some business, to discover undiscovered needs?
I mean, it's difficult to predict the future, but we see that more and more companies are trying to build solution based on data, on more data that was not analyzed or was not available before from different sources, not only banks, but other sources as well. Like, for example, how you could improve the scoring for SMEs. I mean, stepping on not only financial data, but all different data that you could get hold of. And still, it's early to see where it goes, but I think that with time, this whole process will be more and more automated. There'll be more algorithms there. So I hope that it will become more and more efficient, so that at the end of the day, SMEs have better access to funding, for example, or to other financial products based on better understanding of their risk profile. So this is one field. Another that we would like to see evolving is the emergence of the neobanks that actually go after specific niches, which in a way it's more difficult for traditional banks to go in such depth. Of course, there are exceptions for specific customer groups, etc. But this is something that could actually create more value for customers. So these are two areas, and a very good example. Of course, we'll see improving the user experience or the way people consume financial services in particular areas. And a very good example recently was a company from Greece. They're building an application that is being used by kids, of course, under the supervision of parents, but in a very interesting way, using behavior economics and other tools, of course, the technology and everything else, in order to help kids understand this type of services and actually to become financially literate from an earlier age. And probably finally something that really every time amazes me, even today when I had a discussion with a very very interesting and very inspiring entrepreneur from Romania, is that cash is still prevalent all over the place. So this is really amazing. So even in Bulgaria, I mean, there's so many e-commerce sites that you can't pay with a card, and they say, yeah, but you could pay cash on delivery. I mean, okay, so I don't want to be paid cash on delivery. So if you look from this point of view, there are so many services that are still dominated by cash, and there are no and technology or something else is not available, and in many cases is the user behavior, like the people being used to the old way of doing things. It takes time to kind of and this is very interesting what iTouch started in the beginning. Like banks, it's about, or service side, it's about trust, and it's a very interesting way how this would evolve over the future, because the banks have to provide the trust and keep your money safe, but at the same time everybody expects innovation. So this is where the great collaboration should be between startups and banks, so that how you could actually innovate but still keeping things trustful and safe for everybody.
So banks could be symbolized as trustworthy mothers, and while startups and innovators are like small kids running around and doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, sounds good to me.
Actually, it's a good analogy, because if you form the right partnership, I saw some Turkish banks are doing these, like they are being investors, like playing Daniel's role kinda, and they're giving them space, so they're holding their hands like kids, and then they're bringing them up to the podium and giving them a chance, but really to solve a pain point which has a value proposition for the customer, not for the sake of just, oh, let's nourish some startups. It's not the case. But if you do it properly, I think there is a big chance that the startups will be successful, rather than just like they come up there on their own with some ideas.
Yeah, that's on point. Coming to the last quarter of our discussion, appealing to all the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But when we are at we touch on kids and younger generation, so millennials, Gen Z, they're quite a challenge and mystery, I think, for all of the service providers, right? So, and I think also for the banks, right, and for the banking industry. So, how do you address them? I touch Savalina.
Again, Savalina, you.
Well, actually, it's like that in life. You have different audience groups. So the Generation Z and the millennials are actually the ones that are the most demanding in terms of, the quality, convenience of the service and of the agility and capability to kind of satisfy their demands. So that's a challenge. But also, I think that this is also keeping us, from a banking perspective or for financial service providers, perspective in good shape, because, these are the people, I was going to say, the young people, but who don't want to touch cash. For example, as Danny said, they couldn't even imagine that they should have cash. My daughter, who's studying in Denmark, she was back to Sofia a couple of weeks ago, and she was totally terrified because she was somewhere and they couldn't split the bill, through their mobile apps. And she had to go and find an ATM and withdraw money, whereas she only has a mobile phone, and everything is in her mobile phone. So you can imagine, she's never calling a taxi, the operator, she's always using an app. And so these type of people would demand actually the new convenience of the well laid out digital service that not only can give you the speed, but perhaps can also guess what next you would need. So we from the Visa perspective, this is looking at their some predictions of their expenditure value, which is going to be the majority in 5 years' time of everything spent. I'm trying to remember the figure, but this was like tremendous coming from this generation. So we do need to be ready to, with all the technology that the financial industry dispose of, together with our help, the APIs, the transaction controls, the mobile payments, everything contactless, moving in a second, split the bill, person-to-person payments, all these things, they need to be in place. And to some extent, some of these are in place, but there's a long way to go so that we meet their demands. But this is our future bulk of consumers. And they are very, very individualistic. So here comes a favorite topic of mine, how data, understanding the behavioral patterns, and you cannot do that manually. You need to have, the smart technology like artificial intelligence behind, so that they can recognize you as an individual consumer, personalize the offer, and the moment you plug in, or you open a mobile app, you need to have, a kind of suggestion pop up, something useful for you. So that's the personalization, and that's the value proposition to these guys. But certainly, they're the ones that are going to drive, the cashless economy going forward, and the cashless community, which is very good actually for all of us at the end of the day, even from an environmental perspective. And also one other topic which we didn't touch, and it's not actually that closely related to today's event, but imagine the urban mobility, how it is today. So in most of, the cities in our part of the world, you need to find the ticket, go buy the ticket, in order to jump on a bus. This is evolving so fast into contactless, tap to pay type of technology with mobile phone, with a card, which is actually facilitating the movement of people. It's also very, very useful for decreasing, all these congestions, because the more efficient and user-friendly the transportation is, the city transportation, the public transportation, the less you're going to use your car. So, for example, in Romania and in Bulgaria, and we've seen a huge peak in the shared electric transportation, mobile, in-app purchase. You register your card, all of these we partner with them actually, and you don't think so. You take the car, you drop it anywhere. That's the journey of a millennial. Or you take a scooter. So they do impose new ways of approaching even our daily lives. And I'm very happy because in Romania, for example, we launched urban mobility projects with cashless payments, contactless payments in 11 cities, and that has brought to immense penetration of mobile payments and lack of all this hustle to buy a ticket, and to have always small cash for this. So that type of things we're talking about when it comes to millennials and the Generation Z.
Yeah, I agree. I touch you Nobel Bank of Nova KBM was won an award for the best mobile bank 2020. So all the majority of features that Severina mentioned were already implemented. So what else? In what other manner you're approaching millennials and Gen Z that all of these really specific needs, wishes, expectations they have? How do you manage this?
I have a very orthodox view on this Generation Z, millennials. I don't believe in that thing. I believe in difference in generations, and it's always been there as long as the modern human being emerged. So I don't think it's you might argue it's chicken and egg thing. It's not the needs of millennials driving the technological change. It is the other way around. For instance, Uber. It wasn't, the technology was there. It was just like how people made it easier for them, because it was a huge pain. I don't know, many of you have seen San Francisco. In a normal day, let alone in a rainy day, you would wait half an hour. In a rainy day, you would wait 1 hour and a half just for a cab if you're on the street. So that was a really need, and some smart guy used the technology to find the solution for that pain point. So what I'm saying is Gen Z, millennials, it's irrelevant. There will always be a need to make things easier. And if you provide the technology, the scooter thing is, again, the same example. Scooter was not invented because it was asked by the millennials. It was invented and electric vehicles becoming popular, and it solved the problem, and it was plugged in there. And this will keep going on after generation. It's not going to change. This is, as Socrates said, the only thing that doesn't change is the change itself. So it's different. What I'm trying to say is my orthodox view is technology. If you invest in technology, make the transistors smaller, give them this mobile capabilities. If you don't have the batteries, for instance, this thing, I'm holding my cell phone, you cannot see it because of the background, this doesn't work. The screens wouldn't get, applications wouldn't work. So that kind of enablers, the human being is investing in it. Again, coming back to my S-curve, we are hitting the plateau. Now we are pushing the limits with not so big inventions, I would say. So we need to find the next S-curve. What I'm trying to tell the startups is they need to understand what is the next S-curve, what kind of technological advances that are upcoming. It can be quantum computing, for instance, what it would mean. It's not 3 years away, but it's 10 years away. So these kind of things you need to be thinking about, in addition to solving existing pain points with the existing technologies.
So do you see, to slowly wrap up the discussion with this really great S-curve example maybe, do you see any, technologies that could lead to the next wave of the S-curve, technology, opportunity, whatever there is? Not at the moment?
The question is not so clear. What is the question again?
So do you see a technology that will drive the next wave of innovations on this S-curve, right? So you said that we are basically on top of it. So what is next? Do you see over this, hill of the S-curve? So is there a technology in the frontier, or a service or a trend in the market that could be the next driver of the innovations?
I'll be very frank. In financial world, I don't see that new kind of revolutionary change that is coming in the next 2-3 years. I cannot predict more than that, but next 2-3 years, I don't see anything. Maybe I'm blind a little.
Okay, I'll go to Daniel. Daniel, the same question?
I think that like harnessing data in a way and actually understanding better consumers and in a way that was not possible before, but it will not only be data from banks, but it will be connecting data from banks and from let's say from shopping experience, from different sources, and this is something that actually could unleash additional value for everybody on the market. This one thing, and second, which for me is a very interesting trend, is that different companies start integrating financial services within their own business model, and a very good example is Shopify, they now use Stripe as an infrastructure, and they start banking all the different merchants that are within Shopify ecosystem. So this is something very interesting for me, because they get out of the normal banking services and they stay there, and actually Shopify has much better understanding about the risk profile of these merchants and their needs and everything else. So this is something interesting. So this is in a way decentralizing the banking services in a way. So it's not everything will be concentrated in the banks.
Thank you. So Delina, before you answer this question, Andrei has a question for you. So how Visa as a corporation is evolved in helping fintechs, startups find BIN IBAN partners in non-EEA countries? I'm not sure if I understand the question. I read it correctly. Maybe you can, if you don't understand the question, you can just skip to my last question and maybe ask Andrei for his email address, and then we can answer him via email. So to go to the last question. So trends, technology for the next S-curve. So Delina.
Well, I mean, for sure, I tend to agree with Danny. The way we actually work with data from various sources in real time, for whatever need it might be, and the speed is actually, I think this is the next big change that we would be seeing. That requires, obviously, a lot of computing space, or even if it's cloud space. I think that maybe with the quantum computing, this is gonna we are gonna see the next generation of huge step changes. Because it helps on one hand on the end services, whatever you propose to these customers, be it financial services, commercial, trade, educational, but also at the back end always stays, especially when it comes to payments and financial services, security, cybersecurity, anti-fraud. All of that relies actually on data patterns and artificial intelligence and machine learning, so that actually it can happen in nanoseconds. I was in Israel in the Visa Innovation Studio in 2018, actually February, and I was amazed to see these big blocks of startups and entrepreneurs actually that were working on the technology for cybersecurity. You don't even have to identify yourself. Once you've been identified and onboarded, your behavioral pattern is so unique. It's like, your eye, your DNA, that actually, and these are huge machines and algorithms behind that are actually procuring this data. So the moment somebody else takes your mobile phone and tries to pay with it, actually, the service is going to be stopped. And that all happens in real time. So I think this is going to be the huge next mile. I also tend to think that the digital currencies, be it managed by central banks or public blockchains, we're going to see that coming in the next 3 to 5 years, more and more. What else? So data, artificial intelligence, cloud computing power is something that I believe would be like the breakthrough technologies. And yeah, more or less that's it. With regards to the question that this person from the audience asked, and I didn't get it. So yes, please, Urban, if you could take it and send it to me. Visa is doing a couple of things very, very deliberately and with persistence to unlock actually innovation. We're running this type of collaborative innovation programs across the globe. So I'm very happy that I have Istanbul, Greece, Athens, Sofia, and now the regional span of the Visa Innovation Program alongside Hong Kong, San Francisco, Singapore, Berlin, and London. What we do there is actually we are transforming our technology platform, VisaNet, into an open platform through API so that developers can come and test their solutions, which is actually squeezing the time for development. And we're also inviting all our partners into these programs. They're actually contributing very actively. And this is how we come to understanding which are the pain points that they would want to focus on, so that we can bring in through, with the help of 11, the guys, the young, brave, smart people, and I mean, I should stop saying young, all the brave people, that have the ideas how to approach these problems. And in most of the cases, this leads to some very good proof of concept, pilots, and contracts, and we see A rounds coming and hopefully B rounds coming. So this is how we do it. So we have a fast track program in place to finance and speed up, the licensing, onboarding. We have Fintech Connect, huge platform in Visa where we bring in these solutions for our broader partner network. So we're kind of working in a very open, collaborative manner, because we believe actually that the progress is very tightly linked to collaboration. And innovation doesn't happen alone. No one can think of, we're not the only smart guys in town, as they say. So by bringing a lot of people with creative thinking, needs, pain points, and ideas, I think we are helping the whole ecosystem advance. Recently, we've announced, actually it was last week, with regards to the IBAN, I think it was about IBAN. So VisaNet is no longer about only carded rails. We are expanding our network. It's called our network of network strategy, where actually we can now be pushing money to accounts. not only to cards. So that's how it works. The financial industry is connected industry. So you need to make sure that the money moves as fast, as secure as possible for everyone.
This is a great wrap up, especially with the open innovation, collaboration as a core values of every thriving and collaborative, innovative ecosystem. This is really great, and we also share this value. And I believe 11, Nova KBM, all of you as a part, as an active member of the ecosystem, share this value. And it's a great way to wrap up this evening FinTech Challenges and Opportunities satellite event. I thank you all for participating in this interesting evening debate. I'm sure there was a lot of information. I was enjoying it